1954, Wernher von Braun, the father of rocket science, wrote, "We have or will acquire the basic knowledge to solve all the physical problems of a manned flight to Mars. And if all goes to plan, that very thing will be happening in the coming years."
Earlier this month, NASA went farther into space with a spacecraft made to carry humans than it has in more than 40 years. The unmanned Orion capsule went 3,600 miles above the Earth before splashing down in the Pacific after a 4.5-hour journey. Why was the cash-strapped NASA expending so much money on this? Well, it is an important step on the mission to Mars, a planet that the space agency hopes to put a human on in the 2030s. As part of an upcoming special called Moonshots, I had the chance to sit down with the head of NASA to talk about the Mars mission and why he thinks it's so important to him personally and to the world. I'll tell you more about the special in a moment, but first, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. So tell me what the day of the Orion flight was like for NASA.
The day of the Orion flight was awesome. It's an awfully overused word, but it was absolutely incredible. When we all saw the Delta IV Heavy liftoff, rumbling with fire all around it, it was emotional. And usually launches are emotional, but it was an incredible day. And that was, with today's technology, cameras on board Orion, looking out the windows as astronauts will be able to do when they fly in early 2020. You could see Earth from the vantage point of an astronaut sitting in the crew. It was just incredible.
Some of the reports said that there were people tearing up.
I'm an emotional kind of person. I think anybody who knows what's going on and who doesn't tear up in this kind of stuff probably is just, they're pretty hard.
What's the single hardest thing about getting to Mars?
Convincing people that it's worth it is the single most difficult thing. And I'm giving it to you from my perspective as a NASA administrator living and working in Washington, D.C. I know it's worth it. Every one of the 17,000 plus employees of NASA knows it's worth it. And most of our contractors know it's worth it. But convincing the American taxpayer, the administration, the Congress, that it's really worth this and that there is a benefit to be gained is probably the single much more difficult than the technological challenges out there.
Do you wish, though, that there was a much more ambitious funding
Fareed
pattern for...
Now, see, you're going to get me in trouble. Yes, I'm the NASA administrator. I always wish for much, much more.
Here are 5 things we need to know about the proposed Mars 1 mission to the Red Planet. The plan. So, for those who aren't familiar with the mission, it's being run by Mars 1, a Netherlands-based company who by 2025 want to have a permanent human colony on Mars. The company was established by Dutch entrepreneur Bas Lansdorp in 2011.
Dutch company Mars 1 is seeking volunteers to take a one-way trip to live on the Red Planet, knowing that they will not have the capability to return home. CEO Bas Lansdorp said the mission is an opportunity to change the world, but it's not without risk.
Space missions always include risk, and this mission will not be different. When you send humans to Mars, there will be risks. But we will select the people, and we will tell those people the risks. They will understand the risks, and they will have to weigh the risks.
A one-way ticket to Mars. It sounds like science fiction, but it just became reality. Mars 1 is accepting applications from interplanetary pioneers. You must be willing to go further than any human has ever been to live on another world. The criteria: you need to be adaptable, resilient, resourceful, and a team player. You would be the new Christopher Columbus or Magellan, but there are downsides. No oceans, no trees, no morning cup of coffee. Instead, dust storms, barren deserts, volcanoes, and the biggest downside of all, you can never return. But Marsonauts won't be taking off anytime soon. First, they'll undergo 8 years of intensive training, isolated from the rest of the world, learning to live in close spaces. They'll take off on their mission in 2022. No human has ever stepped foot on the Red Planet. It could be you.
His project has had an increase of media attention lately, due to the fact that the candidates who put their names down have been shortlisted, and in that shortlist of 100 hopeful volunteers, many of them will be taking part in the mission.
Mars 1 has just taken another step to bring mankind where it has never stepped before. Meet the Mars 100. Just 100 candidates now remain in a competition for a seat on a one-way trip to the Red Planet.
I want to go to Mars not just to be a part of history, but to inspire people around the world.
Initially, more than 200,000 applied for the Mars One astronaut selection program from all over the world. About a year ago, that number narrowed to about 1,000. That's when we first met 6 of them.
I've wanted to go into space since I was 3 years old.
Out of this group, just 2 advanced to the final 100. Layla Zucker, a married 46-year-old ER doctor from Washington, D.C., who is, well, excited.
Spaceship, spaceship, spaceship!
And Daniel Carey, a 53-year-old data architect from Virginia, husband and father of 2.
The whole impact and possibility becomes a lot more real and sharp as the numbers get smaller.
It's still a long shot, so nothing has really changed. It's still just us, the candidate.
Baz Lansdorp is co-founder of the Mars One mission and has put nearly a decade of research into it. The goal, not only to get people there by 2025, but to also televise the finalists and their training.
I want to really make clear that it is absolutely not our goal to make Big Brother in space. It's our goal to share the most exciting story of mankind of the 21st century in a very beautiful way with the rest of the world.
Mars One partnered with Lockheed Martin, which is already building a lander to conduct experiments on the planet in 2018. However, some scientists not on board with the idea of a one-way trip and question whether Mars One will be ready for liftoff 10 years from now.
I don't know that 2025 or 2030 or even 2035 are realistic, but I think it will happen. Again, you know, our human nature is to explore.
But is exploring a planet millions of miles away worth leaving family behind? When asked, here's what Carey told me last year.
I do not know if I have what it will take to turn my back on my family. But this is the only thing, you know, that would make me even think about trying.
And now?
I told my daughter, and she was like, I'm really conflicted because I want to support you, and on the other hand, I really don't want you to go. And my son was a little less, you know, he's like, oh, that's great, Dad. And with my wife, it's a lot more tense.
The first part is scheduled for 2018. A demonstration and communication satellite will be sent to Mars. This communication device will allow around-the-clock communication from Mars to Earth when the humans arrive. It will be followed by a rover in 2020 that will search for the perfect living location for the humans. Then, in 2022, 6 cargoes are transported to Mars in order to set up the area ready for the astronauts who will depart from Earth in a group of 4 in 2024 and touch down on Mars in 2025. So that is the project put in place, but the whole thing could fall to pieces. The biggest thing standing in the way is not having the technology or the staff, it's the financial side of things that may prevent the mission.
Do you worry, and your sense of things on the Hill, do you worry that the plan may actually get scrapped over time?
No, I don't. You know, I don't get paid to worry. I get paid to plan and execute. And when it comes to space, there is no difference. Everybody, Republican, Democrat, conservative, ultra-liberal, almost to a person, they're all dedicated to it and want to see it happen. It's just that in our environment today, because of this incredible tension that we have between the president and everyone else, that they just don't want it to see, they don't want to see it happen on his watch. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. I don't care what anybody says. And when it happens, and we look back, you know, President Obama sitting in his rocking chair like I'll be doing, he'll be able to say, hey, I don't care who gets the credit, I just know. I was the one who had the courage to tell NASA to get out of low Earth orbit and let industry do that, and to press on to Mars and to asteroids, and I'm a happy camper. He will be able to do that when he's sitting in his rocking chair with his grandkids on his knee. Well, thank you.
Mars One currently don't have enough money to do the things they want to, despite Bas Lansdorp using a substantial percentage of his wealth for the mission. It will cost around $6 billion. The reason it will not be more is that they will be using existing technology that has the capabilities for Mars travel. So if the funds come together from donations and possibly other major companies taking part, then Mars One want to successfully put humans on the Red Planet by 2025. So who will be going? The amount of people who put their names down for the trip was astonishing. More than 200,000 applicants applied to be taken to the next stage of Mars One's astronaut selection process.
What if the condition of flying into space meant that you could never return to Earth? Apparently 200,000 of you would be just fine with that. That's how many people applied to be part of Mars One. This is the one-way, I'm talking no return trip here, to go colonize the red planet. Round one applicants were announced, just over 1,000 in the running, and joining me is my next guest, Heidi Beamer, credentials amazing, First Lieutenant and Chemical Officer stationed at Fort Campbell in Kentucky, chemistry and astronomy graduate of Virginia Military Institute, selected for NASA's space exploration internship. Heidi, I need to take a breath after giving your whole resume. Welcome, nice to have you on.
Thank you, Brooke, nice to have you.
So, this is like you're leaving for Mars, never coming back, never seeing those you love. I mean, I know this has been a dream of yours since the 3rd grade. You even spent 2 weeks with NASA in the Utah desert living and working in spacesuits. But come on, I mean, is there a teeny tiny piece of you that's a little afraid?
I mean, once you have an opportunity to live your dream, all that fear goes away. I mean, this is something I've been working for my entire life, and given that opportunity to actually accomplish it, I'm nothing but excited to move forward in the process.
And the application process, rounds of psychological testing, medical testing, all kinds of stuff I'm sure you can't even share with me. I mean, tell me, the obvious question is, why do you want to go?
Well, as you mentioned before, when I was 8 years old, my dad gave me a newspaper article of the Sojourner rover. And ever since I was a kid, I held on to that newspaper article and I looked at it and I said, we need to send humans here. Why not be me? And so I've spent my entire life just trying to be the best applicant, be the best candidate. And the reason I want to go is to help humanity. I want to be able to leave it all behind and give our future generations something to look forward to. I wasn't born yet when we landed on the moon, yet looking back, that still has inspired me to do great things and push humanity towards the space frontier. So I want to be able to give that to future generations.
To help humanity, well, we appreciate that. Do you know, I know you're not supposed to leave for a couple of years, but do you have any idea what you'll be doing, how you will be living there for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so the system that they've put in place is, it's elaborate, excuse me. Yeah, they're sending 6 rockets to the surface of Mars, and those 6 rockets will have 2 habitation systems, 2 life support systems, and 2 supplies systems. Once you connect them all together using robots, we'll then be able to live there on the surface in crews of 4. And once we're there, we'll be able to do all sorts of things. Science will be our main objective. We'll be going outside of the habitat 3 times a week, and we'll just be conducting scientific experiments, learning about Mars's past, Mars's future, and ultimately Earth's future as part of the solar system.
Out of all those, only 660 were given online interviews, which allowed them to showcase their enthusiasm to the mission and to be told about the risks involved. Out of those 616 interviews, 50 men and 50 women from all around the world were put forward to the next stage, which will be the intensive training.
Mars One, it'll send a group of volunteers to live on Mars. I mean, talk about history. Joining me, a man who would like to take part in this history. He is Peter Felgentreft. He is one of the 100 finalists out of 200,000 plus. Peter, congratulations. And I have so many questions for you, but let's just begin with the obvious. Why do you want to do it?
Well, I think it's a thrilling experience, and most importantly, aside from the experience, I think this is a really important science project. This is basically a thrilling moment in time because it represents the first solid move to the colonization of Mars.
Okay, let's play this out. Let's say you're accepted. You go up to Mars. What exactly would you be doing? Do you know?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's a certain amount of unknowable stuff. You don't know what you'll encounter, but basically it'll be sciences, it'll be exploration, it'll be all the things that you would imagine, anything from geology to figuring out, you know, various biochemical or chemical mechanisms there, or how human behavior takes place in confined environments in hostile areas.
You know, I was reading about this and why certain candidates would be chosen, and from what I read, it's actually less about sort of like your scientific knowledge and more about your zest and enthusiasm for living forever on Mars. I mean, tell me why you think you should go.
So I think the reason why I should go is I think that's, again, a unique opportunity to make some grounds for mankind on another planet. In terms of skill sets, I'm just an average guy, but I think ultimately it really comes down to being compatible in a lot of different situations. And I feel comfortable in things, I suppose, that make some people feel uncomfortable. And most importantly, I'm really focused, just like anybody else would who's part of the 100, on the success of the mission.
Peter, you are an average guy who is married. Let's talk about your wife, if I may. Would your wife like to live forever in Mars with you? Or did she say thanks but no thanks?
Well, first off, I'm probably not going to live forever. But as far as living on Mars, she would like to stay terrestrial.
Okay.
There's only a matter of distance, right? Just a short 7-minute window for a time signal or a signal to come across, and we're basically connected. There's obviously a lack of physical presence, but the answer is no. She does not want to go to Mars.
I mean, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder, but it's not like you get to come back. So how the heck do you say in 2024, honey, I love you, goodbye?
Well, we live in a very socialized world nowadays. It's affection by Twitter, affection by Facebook. I tend to be a little bit of the opposite. I'm very, very directly connected to my wife. I love her dearly, and we're living every day to the fullest. And I think that's really, really important. And between the two of us, that's something we've embraced. And you live for the day. You don't live for tomorrow.
Listen, we all should be ascribing to that. I'm going on a bit of a bucket list trip myself next week, so I kind of can relate, although I am coming back. But my final question to you would be, in these next, say, 10 years, if you're chosen and go far, far away, what items would be on your bucket list? What do you need to check off before you go to Mars?
So I think things I'd like to check off is, just making sure that I, just continue on the path that I'm going down. I enjoy life. I'm an avid skateboarder. I love riding my mountain bike.
Come on, give me that one thing that you haven't done, but you're going to do.
What's the one thing that I'm going to do? I have no clue at this point.
It seems they will be put in groups of 4 based on personalities, chemistry and abilities in order for each team to work together in harmony.
Put 5 people together in this small dome on a volcano in Hawaii for 4 months to see how they got along. Not for the benefit of reality TV viewers, but to learn what they could about what life on the isolated red planet will be like for the astronauts.
This means, though, that if one member for some reason can't take part in the mission or pulls out, the whole group will be pulled and will have to start the process again with a new reserve team member. It's believed that the journey from application to training will be broadcasted on TV in order for the world to pick which group demonstrates they are best suited for the first mission. Now, there was first talk of a reality-style show being made, which led many comparing it to programs like Big Brother.
America has already seen shows about idols, survivors, and housewives, but now reality TV is going where no man has gone before: Mars.
Just like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, when they landed on the moon, it was a story that was shared.
Baz Lansdorp is co-founder of the Mars One mission, a non-profit foundation that hopes to send its own astronauts to the Red Planet and televise every step of the way.
I compare it more readily to the Olympic Games, where extraordinary people do things that almost nobody else can do and share that success with us.
Lansdorp spent nearly a decade researching the mission. Its cost $6 billion, and Mars One has already partnered with Lockheed Martin, which built 10 spacecrafts for NASA.
This is the first privatized space mission that Lockheed Martin's going to be involved with, right? And that makes it very exciting.
Mars One's goal: get people there by 2025.
I think it's unrealistic. I think they have underestimated the challenges of long-term spaceflight. I think they have assessed what it means to sustain a person in a wholly hostile environment.
Did we mention the trip is one way? The astronauts would set up a permanent Mars colony.
The idea of this seems to have been scrapped at the minute, and it might be more of a documentary-style program. It's also worth knowing that there will always be new selections and several groups in training for future missions, and those who want to take part can apply in 2015 in order to become a part of Mars One. Because don't forget, they want to send groups of 4 or more every 2 years, and if all goes well, there doesn't seem to be any reason why they won't keep populating Mars. Candidate training. So, despite the astronauts' role being voluntary, they of course will be paid for full-time training on Earth, which consists of 3 programs: technical training, personal training, and group training. Each member of the team will be trained in different disciplines, so that as the population increases on Mars, each new arrival will bring with them an area of expertise. So far, the technical training will help 2 members in becoming highly trained to repair and use all the equipment that will accompany them on Mars. 2 will receive extensive medical training just in case of any illnesses or accidents. 1 will study Mars geology, and 1 member will be trained in exobiology, which is the biology of alien life.
The point of the mission would probably to see if there's any life on it, and to get lots and lots of material and stuff that's very valuable to use. If there's aliens there, ask to bring one back. You know, bring one back so we can experiment on it. And then, you know, we might actually, unless they want to declare war with us, just say we don't want to, we surrender, you know. If there isn't aliens in the whole universe, I'd be incredibly scared, knowing that we're the only planet with life on it. And then, when our star blows up, eventually, in a long, long time, there won't be any life at all in the whole universe.
Now, whether they are expecting to find traces of life on Mars or not, it's very interesting that 1 member will be trained on this particular subject.
In all of our lifetime, though, we're going to understand that there is life on other bodies in the solar system. We're on the verge of things that people have wondered about for millennia. Are we alone?
After that, there will be personal training, which will help prepare them for the living conditions on Mars and help them deal with the fact that they will no longer be able to speak to friends and family on Earth face to face ever again. And the last stage is group training, involving simulation missions that will attempt to simulate the exact living conditions on Mars. The groups are believed to spend a few months a year here and will live under the same strict rules they will face on Mars. Applying correct personal equipment, keeping water supplies and life support machines up and running, growing their own food, and having a 20-minute delay with all communication from outside the training area are all things the astronauts need to be able to deal with if they are going to end up on Mars. It's believed these bases will be local to start with, but as training progresses, they will be sent to more extreme environments on Earth, from desert terrain to freezing temperatures.
Scientists have ended 8 long months in a simulator on the side of an inactive volcano in Hawaii. They're all part of a NASA experiment called the High Seas Project. It's designed to see how well a small group of people can work together as a team while isolated from the outside world. I would not do well.
I don't think you would survive, no. They've been living inside
8
this
minutes.
dome. 8 minutes max. And they had to wear space suits if they stepped outside. Now, the experiment was meant to give scientists a better idea of how to select and support astronauts for a future mission to Mars.
Well, joining us now is High Seas participant Jocelyn Dunn. Great to see you out and about. What was the most difficult part for you, locked up in that small space with 5 other people? How'd you pass the time?
Well, definitely being in such a confined place, you don't have a lot of privacy. So that was definitely one of the hardest parts, is not being able to get away and just kind of do your own thing. You're always observable by the other people. So you're constantly together. Even though we're isolated from the rest of the world, we're constantly together in our own social situation.
Did you all leave as friends, or was there someone in that group of 5 who you never want to see again, like the guy who was learning how to play the ukulele?
No, yes, we're all still great friends, and we'll definitely be planning reunions in the future, and we're having a lot of fun celebrating now that we're out in beautiful Hawaii and actually able to enjoy it now.
Not a bad place to come out of a 8-month-long solitude. So what was it like? You finally walked outside over the weekend. What did you notice the most?
Well, one thing was just being able to feel the breeze on our skin, because when you're in the spacesuit, all you could feel is it pressing against you, making it more difficult for you to walk in a certain direction, but you don't actually have that sensation. So to feel the air and to see everything without the visor, because you have the glare from the spacesuit helmet, and so just to be able to see everything so crisply and clearly was very profound.
So at the end of all of this, what have scientists learned which they can now use for this possible mission to Mars?
Well, they learn how people interact in a group over time. What do we do to stay as a cohesive group for such a long period of time? What ways do we entertain ourselves? How do we stay productive and motivated? How do we stay active even though we're in a confined space? How do we work out and stay healthy? And then some logistics, like how much food do people eat for, 8 months confined in this space? How much entertainment should you send along with the crew?
Did you make the tinfoil hat, or was that somebody else?
That was Sophie. Yeah, that was one of her dreams come true. She always wanted to make a spacesuit helmet.
We've all wanted to make one of those. Thanks for being with us, Jocelyn. We appreciate it. And welcome back to the real world.
Most of this progress should be included in the television documentary or show. Once all training is complete, like I said, it's up to us to choose which group will be the first to go, the journey to Mars and the living conditions if they arrive. Since Mars and Earth's orbits are not perfectly circular, the time it will take to arrive could be anywhere from 6 to 8 months. But if they stick to the time schedule, it will take around 7 months to travel there.
So a trip to Mars will take about 12 years. So probably much longer. Probably much longer. But if someone tried to get to Mars, they'd have to be probably Magnus's age. What age are you, Magnus, again? I've forgotten. 12, right. Yeah, you'd probably have to be 12. You'd probably have to be as smart as Einstein at 12. You'd probably have to be able to fly a spaceship at 12. You are as long as you start at school, P1. You start learning how to fly a spaceship.
The 4 astronauts will travel in the Mars 1 spacecraft, which has less than 20 meters squared of living space per person. Once they arrive on Mars, their living space will be made up of inflatable units, giving around 250 meters squared of living space per astronaut. If, however, one of the inflatable units gets damaged, it will still be fully functional until a new replacement can be sent out. Although many believe Mars is very similar to Earth, the living conditions are far from ours. Mars is a very barren place, and although there are signs that water may have flowed on Mars once, it doesn't appear that there is hardly, if any, water on Mars's surface.
People think that there might be water on Mars, so we're wondering if there is any life on Mars, because it looked like there used to be water there from some of the probes that we've sent out. Looks like the water might be there.
Beneath the thin atmosphere of Mars lies an enigma, a desert landscape shaped by flowing water. In the distant past, Mars must have had a warmer, wetter climate, but scientists wonder just how wet was ancient Mars.
So in the ancient past, we have some indications that water was flowing on the surface, but how much water was there? We're talking about oceans, are we talking about small rivers, little rain? So these definitions of how much water was on the planet was very undefined.
A major question has been how much water did Mars actually have when it was young, and how did it lose that water?
To answer this question, a team of researchers at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center used infrared telescopes on Earth to study water molecules in the Martian atmosphere.
We used the world's 3 major telescopes for infrared astronomy. From the ground, we could actually take a snapshot of the whole hemisphere of the planet on a single night.
The new infrared maps reveal the atmospheric ratio of normal to heavy water molecules at different locations and seasons on Mars. Heavy water molecules contain a heavy isotope of hydrogen called deuterium, which remains trapped in the Martian water cycle while normal hydrogen is lost to space. The researchers found that water from the polar ice caps is highly enriched in deuterium, indicating that Mars has lost a tremendous quantity of water.
Now we know that Mars water is much more enriched than terrestrial ocean water in the heavy form of water, the deuterated form. Immediately, that permits us to estimate the amount of water Mars has lost since it was young.
The findings indicate that only 13% of an ancient ocean remains on the planet today, now stored in the polar ice caps. 87% of this ocean has been lost to space. This means that early Mars would have looked much different than it does today, with a significant portion of its surface covered by water.
So the really interesting question is, could it form a sea or an ocean? And indeed, it would. In the northern plains, which is a relatively flat region but depressed from the rest of the planet, it would form an ocean that was approximately 20% of the planet's surface area. And so that is a respectable ocean.
This ocean had a maximum depth of around 5,000 feet or around 1 mile deep. It's deep, not as deep as the deepest points of our oceans, but comparable to the average depth of the Mediterranean Sea.
By combining Martian topography with the new estimate for water loss, the researchers were able to simulate Mars's ancient ocean and its escape to space. As Mars lost its atmosphere over billions of years, it lost the pressure and heat needed to keep water liquid, causing the ocean to shrink and recede northward. The remaining water eventually condensed and froze over the north and south poles, giving Mars the ice caps that we see today. This new scenario means that Mars would have stayed wet for longer than previously thought, expanding its ancient habitability.
We now know that Mars was wet for a much longer time than we thought before. Curiosity shows it was wet for 1.5 billion years, already much longer than the period of time needed for life to develop on Earth. And now we see that Mars must have been wet for a period even longer.
It's fascinating that we can learn so much about 4.5 billion years ago when measurements are taken right now. And ultimately we can conclude this idea of an ocean covering 20% of the planet, which opens the idea of habitability and the evolution of life on the planet.
Once there, the astronauts can expect temperatures ranging from 20 degrees Celsius at the equator in the summer, right down to minus 153 degrees at the poles in winter. The gravity on Mars is also half as strong as that on Earth. Atmospheric pressure is also less than our planet, and since the air is 95% carbon dioxide, spacesuits will need to be worn at all times. The biggest danger Mars has to offer is the radiation. Radiation on Mars is considerably higher than what Earth receives, so their habitats will be buried under several meters of soil. And if they only spend around 1 hour a day outside, the radiation levels will not be fatal and will allow them to spend around 60 years on Mars before reaching their astronaut radiation career limit set by ESA standards.
The Mars 1 mission is supposed to happen, okay? The wheels are still turning, Wheels are still turning in the Mars 1 mission. And basically what is going to happen is a group of individuals are going to take a trip to Mars, and they're unlikely to ever come back to planet Earth. And I think that this is an amazing, amazing thing. There are about 700 finalists. Thousands and thousands of people actually signed up for this. There are 700 finalists. And interestingly enough, reporters wanted to know who these finalists are, who's going to get chosen, what is it that makes them think it's a good idea to go to Mars for the very first time, be completely isolated from everyone they know and love, and never come back to Earth.
Why? Why would anyone want to take a one-way trip to another planet? Why?
For me, I grew up, in the space age. And so every kid wanted to be an astronaut.
So I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad and was completely inspired by the "Too Boldly Go" where no person has gone before.
Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking and all of my favorite science fiction authors. They all have quotes that basically say, if we expect to become a multi-planet species to survive for thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of years as a culture, we have to get off this planet.
We talk about global warming, we talk about nuclear war, we talk about asteroids that come very close to Earth. And to give us the ability to live somewhere else, and we do that by trying, and this is part of the trial.
So are all of you doing this because you're thinking of humankind in the future, or are there more personal reasons for why you're doing it?
Oh, I want to go. But let's be clear on that. I've wanted to go into space since I was 3 years old. But it's okay if your personal aspirations happen to coincide with what you think is the best for everyone on the planet and humanity as the whole.
I want to go around and find out from everyone what they believe, what skills they bring to the table, why you should be chosen, why you.
I'd like to think that I could keep a team working bond and keep everyone together. And I also like to think that I'm good at improvising.
Actually, I have a solid foundation in engineering, electrical and mechanical from my undergrad. Did a lot of sailing out to sea in big power plants and ships going across the ocean. So I feel like in combination, I might do okay.
While I wouldn't categorize it as a skill, one of the things when it's go time and stuff is falling apart and everything, I get very calm, very focused and centered. Maybe that was why I made it to the next round.
I think I bring a lot of diverse skills. I mean, I work in various fields, hazardous waste and radiation health physics, and I've always realized that I don't work alone. I work with a team. And I think it's really the team and how we integrate is really what's going to make us successful.
Forever is a very long time. And I'm wondering if psychologically you have really thought about the idea of possibly being there for the rest of your life.
I, for one, personally, would like to come back. And I have a deep desire to come, I'm cautious about leaving everything that I have behind here altogether for the rest of my life.
People are going to be put under pressure, we're going to be put into teams, we're going to have to learn, we're going to be in isolated areas of training several months a year, for the next 7 years. We're going to find out whether or not we can tolerate it before we ever go. And so I think that's important to realize. It's, we're not just picking someone off the street and sending them tomorrow.
As for the fact that it's a one-way trip, I feel like, I could die today getting hit by a car, or I could do something amazing with my life.
We do already know some of the challenges you're going to face. Extracting water, you've got this idea of very powerful storms, windstorms, radiation. There are some of the things that we know already are going to be some challenges, no?
By the time the humans actually get sent for the Mars One settlement, we will have tested out a lot of things, and we'll have habitats waiting. If we don't have the oxygen and the water and everything else prepared and waiting, the humans aren't launched.
Right. You all have family, and I'm wondering what conversations, are you all having similar conversations with family or loved ones?
I see this not so much as turning my back on something or leaving things behind, but looking forward to something else.
The friends and family seems a little less important than just being able to never go outside again. That's what would be the biggest hardship for me, never feeling the sun or the wind on your skin ever again.
I'm torn. I do not know if I have what it will take to turn my back on my family. But this is the only thing, that would make me even think about trying.
They believe, what skills they bring to the table, why you should be chosen, why you?
I'd like to think that I could keep a team working bond and keep everyone together. And I also like to think that I'm good at improvising.
Actually, I have a solid foundation in engineering, electrical and mechanical from my undergrad. Did a lot of sailing out to sea in big power plants and ships going across the ocean. So I feel like in combination, I might do okay.
While I wouldn't categorize it as a skill, one of the things when it's go time and stuff is falling apart and everything, I get very calm, very focused and centered. Maybe that was why I made it to the next round.
I think I bring a lot of diverse skills. I work in various fields, hazardous waste and radiation health physics, and I've always realized that I don't work alone. I work with a team. And I think it's really the team and how we integrate is really what's going to make us successful.
Forever is a very long time. And I'm wondering if psychologically you have really thought about the idea of possibly being there for the rest of your life.
I, for one, personally, would like to come back. And I have a deep desire to come, I'm cautious about leaving everything that I have behind here.
We're going to be put into teams, we're going to have to learn, we're going to be in isolated areas of training several months a year, for the next 7 years. We're going to find out whether or not we can tolerate it before we ever go. And so I think that's important to realize. It's, we're not just picking someone off the street and sending them tomorrow.
As for the fact that it's a one-way trip, I feel like, I could die today getting hit by a car, or I could do something amazing with my life.
We do already know some of the challenges you're going to face. Extracting water, you've got this idea of very powerful storms, windstorms, radiation. There are some of the things that we know already are going to be some challenges, no?
by the time the humans actually get sent for the Mars One settlement, we will have tested out a lot of things, and we'll have habitats waiting. If we don't have the oxygen and the water and everything else prepared and waiting, the humans aren't launched.
Right. You all have family, and I'm wondering what conversations, are you all having similar conversations with family or loved ones?
I see this not so much as turning my back on something or leaving things behind, but looking forward to something else.
The friends and family seems a little less important than just being able to never go outside again. That's what would be the biggest hardship for me, never feeling the sun or the wind on your skin.
One more thing about their living conditions on Mars that has had a lot of media attention is the fact that astronauts are not advised to have intercourse.
Let me just let you know that if you are one of the individuals who's chosen to go to Mars, there are certain things that you have to abstain from, including sex. Now, why is that? Because if
You're already a dork. What difference is it?
You're the worst.
Okay.
If you happen to get pregnant, there are no resources there to take care of a baby, right? It's
Well,
going to
then
be
how
really
are we going to
difficult.
start our colony on Mars?
Well, it's going to be a little difficult, isn't it?
But so far, this is only for the first few years on Mars, since the conditions up there won't be suitable for children. Mars One know that in order for the project to continue, procreation is a key element for building the population on Mars. But experts predict that due to the high levels of radiation, if pregnancy is even possible in the first place, the chances of birth defects would be considerably high. Although those challenges sound intimidating, Mars One are not going to let them stop the mission, and are confident they will overcome all the obstacles the Red Planet throws at them. The potential outcome from the mission has mixed reviews. Some believe it will fail before the first spaceship sets off, either due to financial issues or due to the fact that many of the astronauts will not be able to face never returning to Earth if they do go. Experts also say that regardless of the radiation protection put in place, if the astronauts do go, they could still suffer cataracts of the eyes, weakening and damage to the immune and nervous system, and many other nasty side effects, with the possibility they will either die before they get there or shortly after they arrive. The ethics of the mission have also been raised. Is it right to send humans up there without really knowing whether or not they will live or die?
So let me ask you, I guess, the simplest question. Why send a manned mission to Mars? This is going to be expensive, it's going to be challenging. Why do it?
Well, we have to. For one thing, we want to understand how this universe was formed, and we're doing that every single day. You have to send a human somewhere if you really want to find difficult answers. Is there life somewhere else in our universe? Is there the real possibility that humans can exist somewhere away from Earth? That's really, really important. I happen to be one who believes that, a multi-planet species can survive in perpetuity. Single planet species will die away in relative terms, pretty quickly. So I am trying to do this for my granddaughters. My granddaughters believe that I am short-sighted in talking about going to Mars. They intend to go much farther, but I caution them. I say, look, just calm down. You know, they're 8, 12, and 14. I said, let me get you to Mars. And then after that, you can do what I do, and then you can get us farther. You can get us to follow Voyager outside the solar system. But for now, let me get you to Mars.
So that's why we need to get to Mars, but why send a manned mission? Isn't this why God invented robots?
Well, actually, God invented robots to work, and I don't want to be sacrilegious and I don't want to be trivial, but there is a very critical synergy between robots and humans. And we've learned now how to substitute robots for humans to the greatest extent possible so that we don't put humans at risk. But at some point, if there is something that you want to do bad enough, you've got to be willing to put humans at risk to do that. To actually go to another planet and to demonstrate the fact that humans can in fact survive there, a robot can't tell you that. You've got to have the courage to send a human there, let the humans live, and prove that we can survive there.
Besides all of this, what exactly do Mars One want to achieve out of it? Apart from being a major leap for mankind, they believe their project will help us further understand the origin of the solar system. Maybe they are also expecting to find traces of life up there. The fact one astronaut is being trained in exobiology certainly means they are unsure whether there is or ever has been life on Mars. Even if they find traces of ancient bugs or anything of that sort, that will strengthen the thought that we are not alone in this universe.
We think that there might be something like maybe plankton, things that have evolved. Maybe I know this sounds crazy, but maybe there's dinosaurs or something like that, or alien things that have adapted to living on Earth, Mars, like we have living on Earth. You know, they might look like big green blobs of mush with 2 eyes and a mouth, with big jelly-like teeth and big googly eyes, and they don't have any legs. They just sludge like a slug, big slime trail coming out the back. And you know, that's only my opinion. You can ask millions of people, you can ask loads of people, and they're going to have a different opinion. That's only a personal opinion.
So that's it. If Mars One acquire enough money to fund the mission, there doesn't seem to be anything standing in their way of starting a new human population on Mars.
Stop this thing! We can't stop. It's too dangerous. We've got to slow down first. Bullshit! Just stop this thing! I order you! Stop!
Here, let me help you, sir.
Are you all right, sir?
Fine. How have you been?
Fine, sir.
Good.
It's a good thing you were wearing that helmet.
Yeah.
What should we do now, sir?
Well, are we stopped?
We're stopped, sir.
Good. Well, why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Very good, sir.
Smoke if you got 'em.